I'm Liam O'Mara, a working class kid turned college history professor, and I'm running for Congress on a platform mainly driven by kitchen table economic issues. What got me into politics was having to look my students in the eyes and explain to them that the US is in sharp decline after 40 years of broken public policy and is now more comparable to developing countries on a lot of metrics. Three generations in a row have a worse socioeconomic outlook than their parents, and this directly relates to our epidemic of gun violence, which is one reason I'm such a fierce advocate for reform, both in gun policy and to the underlying social causes of the violence. I think most folks know the problem itself well enough, even if the causes are frequently elusive. But in terms of gun deaths per 100,000, the US ranks 17th in the world. Every country above us is in the developing world. That we can be addressed in the same breath as war zones like Afghanistan is frankly insane. In fact, we experience significantly greater gun violence than Iraq. How can we look ourselves in the mirror and accept that we stand a greater chance of death by firearm in the US than in a country riven with sectarian violence and terrorism, and which was still in the grip of literal civil war when these statistics were collected in 2016? There is no excuse for a country this wealthy to have such a record, but wealth does lie at the heart of the problem. The United States has by far the most wealth and income inequality in the OECD club of rich countries. We also have among the highest rates of poverty, higher even than Mexico, and very low levels of job security. Compensation has hardly budged for 40 years, even as both productivity and the cost of living has soared. Less than half the jobs here in the Inland Empire pay a living wage. At the same time, markets post record profits and wealth concentration takes more and more out of the real economy with predictable results in declining living standards and rising consumer debt. Are we really supposed to assume that all the frustration and anguish this causes has no impact on Americans' mental health? That it is not a significant contributor to our very high suicide rate? That it doesn't lead some people to snap and violently lash out at others? Our refusal to address the core problems through public policy leaves us ill-equipped to deal with the gun situation itself. And it will worsen if left alone, since fully 47% of American jobs are in danger of being automated out of existence in the next few decades. To think this will have no impact on violent crime and shootings is criminally naive. But while the core of the problem is socioeconomic in nature, we must also address the guns themselves, and two sensible reforms would bring those numbers down, especially if paired with the economic changes that would put us in line with the rest of the rich world. These are universal background checks and a mandatory training and certification program. Universal background checks are supported by 97% of gun-owning families in the United States, so why is it so hard to put in place? Most private sales are exempted, which means many people can buy without having a check performed, without record of the transaction, without even showing ID. If you want to know why it's so easy for people with criminal records to purchase guns, this is it. In addition, we should institute a training and certification system for firearm types. Want a handgun? Pass a training course and a test and get certified for a few years. Such testing would include how properly to store weapons as well, which could prevent many accidental deaths. Guns are, after all, the third leading cause of childhood death, and people have been killed by their dogs, which is crazy. If everyone is shown that improper storage can lead to your child's death, and if parents can be prosecuted for such, this will change. Certification and training and keeping guns out of the hands of criminals seems such a small price to pay to save lives, and I will work day and night to convince people of their value on the Hill. It's time to stop dismissing the problem and demand better for our children. Thank you.